With Hussein making no move to withdraw from Kuwait, the coalition was forced to turn to war to eject him. For the Army, the weeks leading to the ground attack were an important period of shaping the battlefield. Done right, this shaping would save casualties and shorten the war.
For an attack pilot, that's a one-in-a-lifetime opportunity to be on a mission like this.
There's one for you, Saddam. Hit that one.
Everything worked out. I mean, it was like a textbook target acquisition.
There it is. Takeout's up there.
I know that when the first target exploded, it was just a quick yes. Like, yes. I was more concerned about doing everything right.
There it is.
Desert Shield became Desert Storm on January 17th with the opening shots fired by the Army Apaches of Task Force Normandy.
The liberation of Kuwait has begun.
As the air war began, Army intelligence picked up the pace of gathering information. Turning an unblinking eye on the enemy, the Army used the Joint Surveillance Target Attack Radar System and unmanned aerial vehicles to supplement other overhead systems.
Intel was available in the desert. Our biggest challenge was disseminating the intelligence, and there's two aspects of that. First, getting it to the commander at the appropriate level on time, and the second is sorting it.
Army targeting procedures took shape under the broad guidance of Lieutenant General John Yosak and his operations and intelligence officers, Brigadier Generals Stephen Arnold and John Stewart. 50% of the Iraqi artillery, armor, and mechanized forces were targeted for destruction by the air operation. Target priorities also included command and control facilities.
Our strategy to go after this army is very, very simple. First, we're going to cut it off, and then we're going to kill it.
The Patriot earned its stripes in protecting the force from Scud attacks. In the course of the war, Hussein launched 86 Scuds against Israel and Saudi Arabia. On the night of January 20th, 4 Scuds were launched at the Saudi port city of Dhahran. Patriot batteries knocked out 3, and the 4th fell harmlessly in the desert. Launch sites in western Iraq became a top CENTCOM priority. Special operations teams were infiltrated deep into Iraq to destroy communication sites and ambush mobile launchers. Lacking air power, the Iraqis could not respond to the all-out attack.
Nobody likes to go out and hurt people, but it was one of those survival instinct things. You know that if you don't hurt him, he's going to hurt you. And that's where the mission comes in. You do what you got to do.
God damn good shot.
We are equipped to go toe-to-toe with anything that Saddam Hussein might throw our way.
With the Iraqis blinded by the coalition's complete seizure of the air, the Army joined in the attack with its own long-range weapons during the period before the ground war began. MLRS, the multiple launch rocket system, fired thousands of bomblets with each rocket covering over 500 meters with devastating destruction. The Iraqis were showered with leaflets in the psychological operations effort to convince them to surrender.
The important point of the PSYOP preparation of the battlefield is that it has to begin before the war starts. It's really too late to wait until the first round is fired before you begin to prepare the battlefield psychologically. It takes time, it takes some effort, and it needs to begin as early as possible.
The 4th Psychological Operations Group even produced a video, Nations of the World Take a Stand, in 5 languages broadcast throughout the theater.
Archers can eliminate Saddam's tanks from beyond the range of their own guns.
28 million leaflets dropped during the war had evident success. 98% of the captured Iraqis had at least one leaflet in their possession. Other special operations teams were also flown deep into Iraq. Psychological operations, MLRS, special forces, and cross-border raids with artillery and attack helicopters multiplied the effects of the coalition bombing and softened the Iraqis up for the Great Wheel to roll.
We took away the enemy's capability to fight as they wanted to fight.
On the border of Kuwait with Saudi Arabia, and extending almost 200 miles further to the west, coalition forces were poised to execute the greatest ground maneuver in modern history.
Okay, we're going to be right up on the border.
Right up to the moment of Schwarzkopf's order to attack, soldiers continued their preparations. No matter how well prepared for combat, gut-wrenching fear of violent death still plagued the waiting attackers.
It's hard, but we know that it has to be done, and there's no other choice.
Got American ingenuity and gumption, so I think we're gonna be okay.
At 0400 hours on the morning of February 24th, 1991, the ground attack began. Across the coalition front, 620,000 soldiers, Marines, and airmen from 37 different countries rolled against the fourth largest army in the world. On the eastern flank, the 1st and 2nd Marine Divisions, reinforced by the Army's Tiger Brigade of the 2nd Armored Division, launched an assault in the center of the enemy force. Their assault on Fortress Kuwait would tie the Iraqis down while the main attack swung wide around to the west. On the far western flank of the Great Wheel, the 18th Airborne Corps with the 6th French Light Armor Division struck deep into Iraq to seal off the theater. In a valley 6 kilometers south of the Iraqi border, the 101st Airborne Division assembled the largest air assault armada the United States had ever committed to combat. Apache helicopters cleared the route to the landing zones where assault helicopters landed infantry to secure large operating bases for the next jump forward.
We were very fortunate to be able to move as fast as we could, but we had the mobility. We knew that.
The ground offensive continued with mounting speed and momentum all along the front. Iraqi troops were outgunned and outmaneuvered.
How can you feel about it? There is no hope for us.
Early success prompted Schwarzkopf to accelerate the plan by having 7th Corps execute the main attack a day earlier. The 1st Infantry Division began at 1430 hours on G-Day with a massive artillery preparation. MLRS and cannon batteries fired 400 rockets and more than 6,000 rounds of artillery, dispersing more than 600,000 deadly bomblets. History shows that poor soldiers, badly led, underfed, and lacking the will to resist are most susceptible to the psychological terror of sudden bombardment. Next, the division breached the Iraqi defenses, totally dominating the Iraqi infantry. Bradley gunners pinned the defenders in their trenches. Instead of taking the planned 18 hours to break through the Iraqi forward defensive barrier, the Big Red One punched through in only 2. By the end of the first day, all coalition objectives had been secured. 18th Airborne Corps and 7th Corps forces continued to probe forward throughout the night. North of the breach, the 2nd Armored Cavalry Regiment eliminated the Iraqi 50th Armored Brigade. At the same time, the 1st British Armored Division passed through the breach en route to attacking the Iraqi 52nd Armored Division. Meanwhile, the 24th Infantry Division and 3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment pressed 3/4 of the way along the route to the Euphrates River. Intelligence officers watched carefully to determine the reaction of the Republican Guard. Would they remain in place, pull out in front of the attack, or counterattack? Intercepted radio messages gave the answer. The Guard was moving forces into blocking positions in front of the advancing 7th Corps. During the afternoon, the 101st Airborne Division continued its air assault all the way to Highway 8. At dusk, the coalition found itself well ahead of schedule. but weather now becomes a major hindrance as wind and rain obscure visibility and increase the danger of accidents. Nevertheless, General Schwarzkopf's impression was that the Iraqis were on the run and that the attack had turned into a pursuit. As the battle progressed, General Franks formed a mighty fist with the 1st and 3rd Armored Divisions, the 1st Infantry Division, and the 1st British Armored Division.
I wanted to hit them one time because our intelligence was they would stay and fight, and we needed to hit them, crack them apart, defeat them, and then destroy them over maybe a period of 2 to 3 days.
With the fist poised, Schwarzkopf ordered a turn to the right into the Republican Guard. As the heavy divisions moved to contact with the Guard, Franks ordered an Apache deep attack well into Kuwait to destroy Iraqi reserve armor forces. In 2 attacks, the single Apache battalion operating in total darkness eliminated the Iraqi 10th Armored Division from the fight. Major General McCaffrey's 24th Infantry Division had completed a 150-mile race to the Euphrates River, destroying any chance of escape for the Republican Guards. By the end of the day, 18th Airborne Corps had linked up its heavy forces with the 101st Airborne Division. During the early morning hours, Major General Rame's Big Red One rolled up elements of the Guard Tawal Khana Division. In the north, the 1st Brigade drove 2 battalion task forces almost to the Kuwaiti border and followed with the 3rd later in the morning. Just to the Big Red One's north, Major General Paul Funk's 3rd Armored Division pressed eastward on a narrower front. Soon the blow fell in the largest armored battle since World War II as the 7th Corps crushed and smashed its way over the Guards.
It really seemed to happen in a blink of an eye. I mean, when I look back and I see how long the process taken, that 30 minutes, 40 minutes was the time it actually took. It seemed maybe like, 3 or 4 seconds. I mean, everything just happened that quickly.
There was no anxiety. There was no fear on my part, and nor do I think on any of the soldiers' part.
The biggest of these battles was Major General Ron Griffith's 1st Armored Division clash with the Medina Armored Division. Despite well-positioned defenses in depth and roughly equivalent numbers, the Iraqis were no match for the 1st Armored Division. Griffith's 3 heavy brigades literally steamrolled over the determined defenders. Every bunker, trench, and vehicle fell to the intensive American fires. By the evening of February 27th, 7th Corps battles at Medina Ridge, Norfolk, and along the Wadi al-Batin had destroyed 5 Iraqi divisions. To the Corps' north, Major General McCaffrey's Victory Division and the 3rd Armored Cavalry Regiment fought their way through the Republican Guards' Al-Faw and Nebuchadnezzar divisions.
There was no command and control. There was nothing but raw, blind panic. And the advantages that we had in both the men that we had and the equipment we had and the training we'd done paid off. It just worked.
The 2 Corps advance to the east was inexorable. Thousands of Iraqis surrendered. Having lost the battle for Kuwait, they now struggled to survive. The Great Wheel moved with incredible speed. At the end of just 100 hours, Kuwait was recaptured, the Iraqi Republican Guard destroyed. War seldom ends cleanly, and Desert Storm was no exception. As combat units turned to waiting refugees and captured Iraqis, isolated fights broke out on March 1st and 2nd in the 24th Infantry Division sector. Soon, however, the fighting ended, at least within coalition-held territory.
Hello.
What's that?
Always remember the children and what they were going through. They seemed to suffer the worst.
Just knowing that we helped so many people, and it was appreciated.
is really a heartwarming feeling to be there.
At a small airfield near the Iraqi town of Safwan on March 3, 1991, General Schwarzkopf received Iraq's total acceptance of coalition ceasefire terms. Certain victory was in hand. The Army's mission was far from over. Rebelling Kurds in northern Iraq were brutally displaced by the remains of the Iraqi Army, setting into motion Operation Provide Comfort.
Finally showing the world that the Special Forces is here to help people, and the United States Army and the United States government is out helping these people. It's a good feeling.
From the Turkish border in the north to occupied southern Iraq, the Army transitioned from combat to humanitarian support. Civil affairs units rapidly organized a support effort and supervised the construction of multiple tent cities to shelter the displaced civilians and former soldiers.
We basically saw that camp go up in 48 hours, and within a week we had it filled with 25,000 Kurds.
Citizen soldiers from the Army Reserve made up 96% of all civil affairs units. These engineers, lawyers, surveyors, and government employees put their civilian skills to work to restore order throughout the entire theater.
We were able to think on our feet, and people just astounded me every day with what they did.
Refugees flooded camps in the mountains of southern Turkey and southern Iraq and Saudi Arabia. Army soldiers not only protected the refugees, but provided food, water, and medical treatment.
It's real sad to see all the children without, you know that they're without their parents and without their families. You see them without their, when you see people who have walked on, who've lost their limbs, it's real sad to see.
He says Saddam's soldiers did that to him. America. He keeps saying America because he thinks he can go there and get prosthesis and walk again.
The numbers overwhelmed the camps. 3,000 refugees in the Safwan camp. 20,000 filled camps near Rafah. And a staggering 500,000 taxed the Provide Comfort effort in northern Iraq. Grateful refugees will never forget the American care and compassion.
We are very thanks the USA Army and exactly President Bush for who gave help to us to Kurdish poor people.
They all have a special place in my heart, and I plan to write and visit with them soon. They can come to visit me. They have an open invitation.
This is probably the best experience of my entire life. I thought Desert Shield, Desert Storm was important. This is definitely much more significant.
Operation Provide Comfort was a huge success. American military organization and leadership held together a coalition of forces.
They did not care, say, hey, it's 5 o'clock, it's time to quit today. They just worked until they got the job done.
In no other war in modern history has an armed force been asked to destroy an enemy tank to tank one day and provide that same enemy life-saving assistance moments later.
And each tribe or each charrette needs to appoint one man in charge till the chiefs come.
It was certainly a victory in the Gulf. However, such a resounding victory was not without its share of lessons for the future.
We almost felt like we were invincible, that they could not hurt us.
You take quality soldiers, quality leaders, well-trained, and put them on the equipment today after day, it's a bad combination for the enemy.
We were the ones that made it happen. We all survived, did our jobs, and we got the big W for the United States and Kuwait for freedom.
The American Army was clearly better prepared to fight a major conflict than its adversary.
If people had paid attention to what happened in Panama in December and January 1989, 1990, they could have predicted what the U.S. Army would do in the Gulf.
I think our soldiers were clearly the best trained, best disciplined, physically toughest soldiers that we've ever put on the battlefield.
Victory in the Gulf brought home the lesson that future wars demand the full support of the American people.
Troops were ready. They were mentally prepared. They had trained hard. They understood their business, and they were led by some of the greatest young sergeants, lieutenants, captains, and warrant officers that we've ever fielded.
Logistics is the engine that drives a new style of American war.
You forget logistics and you lose. And so I call them brute force logistics, and that's what it was. A lot of hard work, a lot of hard work.
Not one tactical operation was curtailed, delayed, canceled, or postponed for the lack of logistical support.
By the end of the Gulf War, reserve and guard units made up over 70% of all theater support forces.
It's a very important part of the grand picture, I guess. What they're doing up on the front lines, they definitely couldn't do without us.
Army leaders insisted that no soldier would be committed to combat unprepared.
Push right.
Realistic field training in combat training centers and in units in the desert made the vital difference.
We literally train exactly the manner in which we're going to fight.
It took 20 years of long, hard work in the schoolhouse, in the units, and hard work by individuals to make themselves and ourselves as good as we could be on the battlefield.
Across the nation and at posts overseas, Americans showed their love and support for the triumphant returning troops.
The victory in the Persian Gulf War is what the American people expect of their military. They expect them to be good, they expect them to be professional, and they expect them to succeed. And in the Persian Gulf War, their expectations were met.
All the things that we've done for 15 years to rebuild this Army, I saw it happen. You know, and I'm a Vietnam veteran. You know, I've seen our society change and do these things. It's absolutely humbling. It really is humbling to see that. And these boys are so good, every one of them.
As the Army looks to the future, we must remain a ready Army. Make no mistake about it, readiness is key to success. We must be a quality Army because it was quality soldiers that were key in Desert Storm, and it'll be quality soldiers that'll be key in any war that we may fight in the future. And finally, we must remain truly a trained and ready Army.
Certain victory took a force trained to a standard of excellence that the Iraqis could never match or understand. Our challenge is to keep this edge, for we know without any doubt that the Army must be prepared for future conflicts. The Army must possess balance and flexibility if it's to deploy quickly and arrive ready to fight. This is the legacy of certain victory. I'm Tom Kelly. Thanks for